Okay, so I said in my last video, actually the one before that, I had a video that got banned. I'll tell you all about that. But I had a video before where I said I'd provide an update at some point, and now after January 6th events, sure, this would be a great time to do it. Now, the video that I had was based on, the outcome being the opposite. But like I said, that was at the time that I made it. And now we have the results coming in that, okay, Biden has won. Um, Basically, before I get into all that, what happened with my video that was banned was I spoke about some things regarding COVID, and then my video was deleted and or removed. That's the correct term that YouTube uses. And so I wondered why. I thought maybe because I'm got a certain cup here from a certain company that maybe they were upset about that. But then I actually got an official email as to why that was. And it's because in YouTube's community guidelines, they have a tenet that is, or a policy that is specifically called COVID medical disinformation policy. So because of whatever information, I didn't ask them about this. I'm just considering if I'm going to do an appeal about it. But just because of whatever I said in there, and I was passing on information, not my own information, but information that I heard in the news. The channel, or sorry, the video got removed. So I'm gonna look into that, I guess, and see what happens. But a lot of people might not understand and might not know right now about the massive sense of or the massive censorship on YouTube that's going on right now, with Twitter, with Facebook, with Google. And the censorship is all censoring conservative elements that are providing material and content for these platforms. And on the other hand, you'll have, it's some of the simplest stuff that the videos are being deleted, but then there's plenty of videos and tweets and all this stuff advocating for violence, advocating for this and that, doing horrible things, talking about killing people and this and that, right? And those videos aren't getting banned. It's come to a point where these CEOs of these companies have been brought to court and have had senators rip into them about how their information, or how they're censoring information, and how that it's so influential, their liberal bias, or what they, or if you want to call it whatever, what they choose to be able to be out there in the public spectrum. They're just getting ripped up about their ability to influence big decisions in life, namely elections as well. So imagine that. Imagine you have a company that is controlling the information, and it actually ends up affecting elections in a country, right? So we did have that here. I'm not going to get too much into that because that's a whole other topic. But the censorship is way out of proportion, and hopefully people get their freedom back to be able to publish what they want online, because it's not about somebody's opinion that you can't let them speak. That's not the principle behind free speech. But anyways, I want to get into the events that happened yesterday. And it's funny how I've only talked to a few people since it only happened yesterday, and I end up talking to a lot of people about these kind of things. But what's funny is when you see people saying, well, yeah, like that looked kind of fishy what happened, how they just got into there, into Capitol Hill like that, right? How did that just happen? How come they didn't have like security, or high levels of security there, Someone else I spoke to was like, oh yeah, they mentioned that point, that how did they get in there, right? And they were like, oh, that's interesting that you were talking about that, because this is what someone else said, just like, out of the blue, kind of, while we're just going over this whole situation. They were finding out more about what's going on. But this doesn't seem right that could happen. Just this group of people, then they go in there, and then, if you look at the video, I'm not discrediting the amount of or how bad it is for this kind of thing to happen. I'm not downplaying, this type of thing. And even in just with the courts, is the courts will look at this like, okay, well, something bad could have happened. Something bad did happen. But even if nothing happened, the argument in courts would be like, okay, well, we have laws to prevent people from doing these things just in case something happens. So we can call it serious in a certain light. But the way that it was reported, like, is this astronomically overblown? Now, yes, people did die. That is extremely serious, and condolences to go out to those people. But I didn't see all of the video. I heard there was some tear gassing and some of the other stuff going on. Obviously, at any point during the day, not just there was, people maybe tussling with the barriers, and there's always going to be some idiots who go in and do something dumb in the crowd. That's just, some people are just trouble. That's how it goes, right? But it's like, okay, well, we saw videos of like people smashing windows and people blowing off a fire extinguisher and tussling with police. But I mean, you would think if that you have, what they reported as like this invasion, this insurrection, this new Pearl Harbor event, this horrible attempt to take over the government on such a serious day. I mean, okay, so the people are inside and the authorities are trying to protect these senators and congress people, and the vice president while they're deciding on the election results. And you'd think that these people who barged into the place, they'd end up getting shot on a massive level. I mean, not just one person getting shot. You'd sure say that was a warning and this and that and whatever, or even if it wasn't a warning, it was just to say, okay, well, look, you can't come in here. This is what's going to happen. I mean, everybody knows that could happen, but we saw people standing around, taking pictures, having a little fun, this and that. That doesn't look like a massive coup to me, What happens when you have a coup is when you have generals coming in with trucks and planes and this and that, and they're coming in and they're killing the government, and they're taking over, they're seizing government buildings, and it's a complete takeover, it's circumstances like that. It looked like a bunch of people were out to have some fun that day. Yes, there was a little bit of vandalism and stuff like that, but this was not no organized attempt to go in and take over the building. With the amount of people that were there, that were outside, it wasn't this giant mob and all those people were together because they're Trump supporters. Every single one of them is about to take over the government. Like, come on, give me a break, man. But how about this? Did you see people armed? Maybe there was. I don't know what the details are. Like I said, I don't know all the information on this, but did this seem like an armed insurrection? Well, if it didn't to you, Nancy Pelosi reported that it was an armed insurrection. So this is all overblown. Now this whole thing, in the end of it, it's going to be used to say, oh, look what happened. These people are trying to take the government. We got to bring in extra hardcore measures. So when you have this next Biden, Kamala Harris administration come in, it's going to be like, okay, no, we're not tolerating this. We're not having none of this. And they're going to set up a real set of police state type scenario going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if you're not even allowed to gather in groups and go to the White House and protest anymore. That seems a little far-fetched, even, for the kind of repressive tactics that would come out of this administration. Why I say that is because it's like, okay, this is a liberal democratic administration. And what has happened to liberalism now is liberal is supposed to mean free, but it seems that liberalism means that everybody should not be able to say anything. We got to have big government. We got to have all these rules and all these laws and all these different things and regulations and restrictive things on your life. Having all these social programs for everybody, welfare and this and that and loans and this and that. That's restrictive. Like if somebody owns your wallet, they own you. You know what I mean? If you're depending on them for all kinds of things, I'm not saying the government shouldn't have services, but it should be that you should be able to, the government should provide incentive, if anything, whatever that is, for you to be able to be independent. You know, not to have them taking care of you because you don't know how to take care of yourself and that everything is against you and you need that help. So it seems like liberalism is very restrictive. And then what's funny is in this whole COVID situation, is you see that the liberal cities are the ones, the liberal democratic cities are the ones that have the toughest lockdown measures. And they're the ones that have these governors and people who work in the government who are breaking the rules and they're going on vacation. And yes, we had that in Canada, but yes, it's happening a lot in the United States. They're going on vacation. The governor in Texas was telling people to stay at home and he was in Mexico, right? And then these people come out and say like, oh, well, like Nancy Pelosi said she was set up when she was caught in the hair salon. And there's another, I can't remember her position in the government, but another lady was called up for going and getting her hair done. And she went and said, oh, well, you know, I'm in the public sphere. So I felt I take very good care of my appearance. So I felt that I had to go and get my hair done. And if this thing was so serious, these people wouldn't be going places. They would stay home. Okay, they're not breaking the rules to take a risk. They're doing what they want to because they don't feel that the risk is that bad. But I mean, in the conservative cities and conservative regions, this is where like they're opened up. People aren't wearing masks all the time, and the economies are open, right? So it's this whole lockdown thing has become politicized, where it's like, okay, yeah, if it's Democratic region, then it's like, oh no, like got to do everything by the book. Everybody stay at home. All of this, you know. So um, yeah, basically, liberalism doesn't mean free anymore, and that's the kind of system that we're going into. And speaking of like freedom and where we're headed, you know, there's many people who come from communist countries and they say they came here, you know, whether that's Canada or America, to escape communism. And the funny thing is, when they keep telling you, you know, every time you talk to them, they keep telling you, oh, this is communism we're going into, you know. So those people have the real perspective because they've lived it. They know what it is. They've seen it. They've experienced it. You know what I mean? And they ran away, like I said, right? And you know, here it is back to what coming back to what they're trying to escape. So to sum it up in this video, also too, you know, they try to make it look like it's these Trump supporters. Well, there's reports that those people are Antifa who went and broke into the building, and I mean, you would think like they'd have more security there, right? But what's funny thing is, whenever you have tragedies that don't happen, a lot of times you will have it where the security element involved is pulled back. They're not there. They're below requirements. Um, they're incompetent, right? It's just like with 9/11, where you had, you know, a few terrorists with box cutters. They undermined the North American air defense system in the United States, right? So anytime you have this standing down of security, when you have these events happen, you always got to question. And these types of things are called, I don't know if I should use the term, but it's like when you're waving the flag, but it's not a real one. There's actually a real term, but I don't want to use the term because it might get banned on YouTube, right? But it's just making it look like, oh, well, look, it's the enemy who did this, when it's them themselves who did it to sabotage things, right? And then move ahead with their own agenda. So that's what this whole thing looks like. I'm not purporting that I know everything. I'm not purporting that I'm smart. I'm not purporting that, you know, I can predict the future, but it's just, I've been researching things for a long time. And what happens is, when you start researching something, you can start seeing patterns, and you can see those patterns more clear. And when you don't have, you know, knowledge of any field of study or anything, or of a certain topic, I should say, at the beginning, you're like, okay, well, what's this? I don't know what it is. This could be anything. It could be this, it could be that, it could be blah, blah, blah. But then after you actually start learning about that thing, then you start to be able to call it out, to pick it out, to see it when it's there, or to see it when it's operating or whatever. And it will give you perspective, or even you look at other things and then you can understand those things related to what you were initially looking at, because you see that similarity there, right? So you're more familiar with things, so you can analyze even other things better, because they kind of, fit into the same picture in some way, maybe even if they're not so closely related. But in the end of this, yeah, I guess what we're looking to see is the loss of conservatism in government, and more of a police state type of situation occurring down in the States. As I said, with more lockdown restrictions, more restrictions on free speech, and more of a repressive style of government. So I just want everybody to understand also that the media coverage these days is absolutely poison. I've been telling people that media is manipulated for the last how many years, and now, like, let's call all those years normal, but the media in the last in the last year has turned to poison. It's 10 times worse. It cannot be trusted. It's funny because you hear what's going on in alternative media, and you hear quite the opposite, or you hear a totally different or you hear discussions about other things regarding the situation. Instead of talking about, the real picture, it's like all these other things are brought up to talk about. With the election, you had people going presenting evidence before the courts, and then the way they report Giuliani and his team of lawyers and what happened. Now, if you're real media, you just go and you report, okay, well, this is what happened, right? But the media has been reporting these stories like, oh, well, look, this person, oh, look, Giuliani, his hair, he has no evidence, and his hair dye is dripping, right? And then there was another lady there, and they were like, oh, is she drunk? Oh, how about you cover what she was talking about, right? But also too, what they're adding in to all these news stories is that, okay, well, this is these people are testifying today, or they're presenting evidence towards the courts, but there is no evidence. Could you imagine that if you have something as vital as this, where a challenging election fraud, right, or challenging election fraud, you have ex-mayor Giuliani, and a lawyer who has a team of lawyers, and they're doing the bidding of President Trump to go and fight this election fraud. Do you really think they showed up with zero evidence? I mean, come on, zero evidence. Okay, now the evidence that they had, it was not heard in court. Okay, they did not want to take on the evidence, so it's not like they presented no evidence. The evidence wasn't accepted, and the cases were not being pursued. Okay, and there was talk of how these Supreme Court judges were facing death threats and all these things. And also too, it appeared to be that some of them thought that, okay, well, if Trump does win, well, then you're going to have what I said in my video that I'm actually updating right now, and addressing what I said in that video. Whereas if Trump ended up winning, then you'd have the liberal left going and burning down the country, because they hate America and they think it's so sexist, racist, homophobic, and that Trump is the devil. And I like to ask those people, well, what's actually wrong with your life because he was around for the last 4 years? I think it's more like you're hurt, your feelings are hurt. It's not so much that, you can't get a job and you can't do this, and you got racially attacked and blah, blah, blah. No, it's your feelings are hurt. That's what the problem is. So that's why that term Trump derangement Trump derangement syndrome came up, or orange man bad. It's like people's thinking became so feeble. It's like as soon as they see Trump, it's like they hear anything about Trump, and this happens with people talking and with family members, with friends, and just people getting so upset about the whole situation. Okay, and that's the real big problem here, and it's been separating families, it's been separating friends. This whole thing about being so upset about Trump, but I'm not necessarily defending him, and I've heard plenty of things that he said that is like or done that is not good, So, but as a business owner, I've seen the economy get better. When in June 2019, I saw an economic downturn. Okay. And then it was funny because the next year everything started building up and then going up into um, this year in the spring. I was like, okay, everything's going to be great this year. It started off great, and winter's usually slow, but it's like this year started off great. So let's see what happens. You know what I mean? And sure enough, the lockdown comes in. That was the end of that, right? So now this economic collapse that we're going into, it's this whole COVID thing is ongoing. So there's no end to it, and the future doesn't look good for us, unfortunately. I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimist. I'm a realist though too, and that's the thing. Sometimes it's not about how you feel about how you want things. Sometimes it's about being real and saying, well, you know what, this is what it is. So this is the kind of things that you have to accept, because you know what, life is not all peachy. Life is not to be without hardship and struggle and all those things. Life is supposed to be tough, and nature has laws, and nature has balance too. So you can experience good and evil. You can experience um, hatred. You can experience love. But all those things, it's about, okay, you embrace the positive, but you withstand the negative. Maybe you have to fight off the negative, but you also have to endure it, right? So I guess that's it with this video. But yeah, don't trust the media anymore. It's full of lies. It's such a bad situation. I mean, I could go on this topic for days if I wanted to, but this is my message to you people. Look out for alternative media sources and stop believing what's going on out there, because it's all kinds of censorship. And this cancel culture is about saying everybody and everything who said anything, anytime, anywhere, any decade ago. If they don't like it, these people's lives should be shamed and they should be thrown into the ground. That's not the way we're supposed to be living. We're supposed to be saying, okay, well, you know what? Maybe somebody said something offensive. Maybe we have to do something about that. At least deal with it rationally. So anyways, that's it for today.